It seems like lately everybody's down on the megachurch. I have certainly experienced dead megachurches, but most of the megachurches I've been involved with are vibrantly alive and they're doing amazing work. Of course, there are also very small churches that I have visited in the last few weeks and few months that are thriving. So it's not whether you're big or small that matters, it's that we're faithful to the gospel. But I do want to continue talking about the megachurch because there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. Today I have a dear friend of mine whom I work with all over the world who knows a lot about megachurches. He's led them, he's coached them, he's consulted them, maybe even buried a few. But it's great to have my good friend Kevin York here to talk about the megachurch.
It's great to be here.
Kevin, are the megachurches dead? That's the rumor.
Well, I think it's a rumor. And I think it's just a rumor. What's surprising to me is that with the desperate need of the gospel getting around the world, that anyone would discuss the death of a certain model. I think every single model that's out there is needed, from the viral model to the missional incarnational models to the attractional models to the mega models.
And Paul said something about that, where no matter what the motive is,
Exactly.
Some preach the gospel with this motive or that motive, but he was happy that as long as it was being preached,
Exactly.
as long as Jesus was being preached, then it was okay with him.
I think that's exactly right. God is the one that gives the growth. So I think that megachurches are miracles wherever you find them. They're typically 5-talent people. From the parable of the talents, we're supposed to take those talents and not hide them or to use them. And he wants to take the gifts that you have been given by him and utilize those to forward the gospel. And many times that is the beginning of the creation of a megachurch whose call is to transform an area of the world. That's why I'm so passionate about all models and even that model.
And it seems like sometimes it's culturally driven because we certainly work in areas. I just came from our Middle East conference recently, and many of those nations that I can't mention that we're working in have to be home churches because if they do something publicly, they get arrested. I think what we've tried to do is embrace whatever model works in that context, in that culture. And so we're waving the flag of house churches in places where it needs to be underground. We're waving the flag of campus churches in certain places, and in places where God has grown it quite large and it's become a mega church, then we're waving that flag too.
Yes, and even the bivocational flag in some countries, that is the single most efficient model. And so it's all the models. It's all the models being engaged all the time, everywhere, for the propagation of the gospel.
In the every nation world, we're not dictating or preferring any model. What we're trying to say is, based on where you are and based on what your gifting is, figure out what works where you are and give it the best shot you have.
Yes. I think our job is to remove human obstacles to the forwarding of the gospel.
Yeah.
And that's our day job. And so we're to equip and train ourselves. We're to do everything in our power to engage the culture around us. And so it's being responsible. It's removing obstacles to the gospel.
If our job, humanly speaking, and as leaders and coaches and consultants, is to remove human obstacles, there are always human obstacles.
Yes,
there are always character
always.
issues, there are always motive issues, there are always bad ideas. But if we can eliminate as many of those as possible, whether it's a small church, a medium-sized church, a house church, or a mega church, in a big building in a mall, or a multi-site church, or whatever, all we can do is that and trust God to do what God's going to do.
And 1 Corinthians, Paul looked inside a church that was functioning. And he said, I have 2 issues with the way you do church. You don't care about lost people, and you don't care about the unconnected or the ungifted people. What incensed him was that they had within their power, engaging the culture, the ability to change how they did what they did to engage those parts of the culture.
Kevin, thank you for the time here, and I appreciate your insights. And if we can close with that thought, for Paul, he wasn't encouraged or discouraged about the size of the church. It wasn't like if it was a large church, Paul would praise the church and the city and the pastor. If it was a small church, he would rebuke them. No, it came down to, are they faithful to the gospel? Are they loving people? Do they actually care about one another? Do they actually care about those outside of the church? It really came down to loving God, loving people. Not how big, not how small. So let's do that. Let's just love God. Let's love people.